Joe Rogan hates video games, taking Twitter by storm. DeCerto released an article. I'm a little bit late to this party. I actually tweeted about it. I tweeted about it when it happened, and I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal because I guess my perception of it was that it shouldn't be, but it was a pretty big deal. Bunch of articles written about it, so I ended up tweeting about it. And so we're going to break it down. I want to break down what Joe Rogan said, and I want to address some things. I think that there's a lot of people in the industry that are very, they're kind of choosing to be blind to a lot of data and a lot of facts that I think that if we put it in front of them, they're not going to like so much. So let's start. I think that there's only a few things. First of all, most of or almost all of this started from a minute clip, which starts about, let's see, I think it's 1:10 in this talk. So let's listen to what he has to say.
And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun.
Addictive.
And you don't, well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
Right.
It's like you could do like martial arts, right? You could learn jujitsu. You get obsessed by jujitsu, and then 3 years later, you're like an elite jujitsu athlete. You're like,
cool. So this is the first part of it, and then a little bit of a later part of it, or a little bit before, I think, where he says that video games are a waste of time. And what happened was all these people that are professional in the industry came out and said video games changed my life. If it wasn't for the video games, I would have lost my mother and my father. I was able to buy my mom a house because I was able to stream, or I work at these companies or whatever. Okay, great. Cool. So what Joe Rogan is actually referring to here, and this goes into what I actually tweeted about this, right? This isn't an attack on the industry. Joe Rogan acknowledges this later. We'll go over that. This is Joe's personal recollection of gaming addiction. The vast minority of people make discernible income from gaming compared to people who have struggled with it. So Joe Rogan had a personal experience with video games. He struggled because he was playing Quake compulsively, and he had to, I think, throw his computer away was the way that he solved it. So when he's speaking about this, he's speaking from a very personal experience. He is saying that video games are a waste of time for a lot of people, and I can't disagree with that. I think that they are a waste of time for a lot of people, especially people that are sort of not understanding that the likelihood of them that are becoming professionals or making any kind of discernible income off this is very negligible. What he's not attacking is people who are coming home from work, want to sit down, enjoy some time, play some video games, hang out, even if you play it for a lot of time, right? When I'm done with work every day, and I have 2 full-time jobs right now, right? When I'm done with work, I go home and I play EVE Online for 6 to 8 hours, and I love it. And I don't feel like that's unhealthy at all. I have a great relationship. I have lots of friends. I have everything. It's not a waste of time for me, right? That's something that you can subjectively define is a waste of time. Only you can define that. But that's not what Joe's saying. What Joe's actually saying is that video games are a waste of time compared to learning a real skill. So if you have a choice, okay, and you can put your time into something that is a professional skill to develop, or video games, what the example that he uses here at 120 is he says that if you decide to learn jujitsu over the course of 3 years, by the end of that, you have a skill that you can utilize, that you can take with you, that you have a reasonable assumption that you can be good at, that you could teach, that you could add value to people with, or that you can carry with you. And there's a lot of confidence and things that come with that. If you play video games for the same amount of time and you end up being semi-good, okay at League of Legends, and you're platinum, you're in the top 10% of players, and there's absolutely nothing you can do that translates into real life with that. Now, if you've played that game for 3 years because you enjoy it and because you have an otherwise healthy existence, more power to you. There isn't anybody that's saying that that's a bad thing. Joe's not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either. But this is the real truth, okay? And it's something that I talk about not enough on my channel, but I should talk about more, that if you are playing video games with the expectation of making it professional, either by being an esports player or by being a broadcaster, the percentage chance that you're going to succeed at that is astronomically low. I used to say, and this is based off some old stats that I had from 2016 or 17, that if you had 460 viewers, you were in the top 1% of Twitch. If you had over 700 viewers, you were in the top 0.001% of Twitch. But that has changed. There are now 5.8 million monthly broadcasters on the website. And even when controlled for people that stream consistently, that is people that don't just turn on their stream and leave, you are in the top 0.00001% of people if you are a person that makes income off of Twitch, because there's only 40,000 partners and most of those partners don't make anywhere near full-time income. Now, that's streamers. If you want to go into professional esports, it's even smaller compared to the number of people that play the game at a high level, and the people that are actually in the LCS or OWL or anywhere is infinitesimal, and the people that actually make any kind of money and stay in the LCS or OWL is even smaller than that. And on top of that, even if you get all that way, if you are a top contender in the LCS, you play for 4 years and then you get out, you have no skills for all 4 of those years. The only thing that you did was play video games. So your options are basically to go to a job that's related to like game development. You better hope you can do like QA, which a lot of people moved into. This is speaking from personal experience because I've had a lot of players that I have seen go through that transition on my own teams and on teams that I managed and on teams I consulted for. So I've seen this a lot. I've also seen it a lot with broadcasters. When broadcasters burn out and they're done streaming, that is like you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future. If you start streaming when you're 22 and then you end when you're 27, you have gained no discernible skills in that time. People, well, I could use OBS and I could do videos and stuff. Like, there are some people that have learned other skills in addition to streaming. So some people have learned things like video editing as like because they wanted to, but that's not something that's required for streaming. If what you do is you turn on OBS, you play games, and then you turn it off, by the end of that 5 years, you will not be any more valuable to society than you would be. But if you learn a discernible skill, like what the example that Joe's using here, which is jujitsu, you do have that ability. You have that ability to translate that into value. And I think people need to understand that the vast majority of people are not going to make any kind of discernible income off of video games ever. And that number is going to get worse before it gets better. But let's keep going. I think that there's some other important stuff to point out. So they keep talking about this kind of example for jiu-jitsu.
Or you could just be playing fucking video games. 3 years later, you could be that same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the fuck game is, next Xbox game to come out, and you're going to waste your time.
Right. So this is like too real. The thing is, I think a lot of people, they galvanize around gaming because like when gaming gets attacked, it's like an organism and people like want to protect it and be like, no, like gaming is like already gets enough hate. Like don't hate gaming, just all this stuff, right? And I understand like why that is. I'm a gamer, avid gamer as well, and I get that. But what Joe is saying here is that there is a huge difference between someone that actually sets out to become a professional at something and someone who actually sets out to be good at something, and people that just play video games as a way to pass the time. And the problem is that a lot of people that are playing video games that legitimately are wasting their time in bad life circumstances, like they would be with any other addiction, like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. A lot of those people, what's happening to them is they are using video games as an escape to not address things that are otherwise going on in their life. And what I said in my tweet is that there are so many more people with this problem of struggling with video games in some way. I have struggled with video games in the past. Nearly everyone I know has struggled with video games in the past. Even now, it's like a very tenuous relationship. Like it's like a demon on a leash that I have to control. That if like I don't like pay attention to it, it gets away from me. And there's like a Path of Exile week, and all of a sudden, like a month of my life has evaporated. I have no idea what happened. I'm in my underpants, and like my family has left me. I'm starving. I have no idea what's going on. Like the world's ending outside, and I have no like that's. I have to have that constant awareness of the power that it has. Because if I don't, then it could just overwhelm me. And that's a person that I would consider to be, I'm pretty highly disciplined and like I really think a lot about this. So for a lot of people, video games are much more of a burden than a boon. And I think a lot of people are using this defense like it's like, oh, like, well, I've made full-time income off of video games, or I'm in a game industry job where I've benefited from video games. Dog, you're in the like complete minority compared to people that are really struggling with it. But despite that, right, and I think this is kind of the crux of the issue, Joe addresses this, right? So we could, at 225, he says this.
Funny with this video game that he's...
So Joe DeSeta says he has a son that he's dealing with that is like he's struggling, and so I think we need to go back a little bit. Basically, he says, oh, like, well, I've got this kid that's trying to play video games. He's saying, Dad, people are making money off of this, right?
It's a big battle in the house.
Yes.
And my kids, I don't know if you're going through this, but my kids are now saying, well, Dad, this guy made all this money with this video game. That he's
That's
a man.
real too.
Joe acknowledges it.
That's
right?
real too now.
So like that's 1 in a billion, kid.
I don't know if it's 1 in a billion, but
And then he defends it again and says, like, so Joe DeSantis is 1 in a billion, right? And Rogan even corrects him and says, no, it's not. It's more common than that.
Look, I heard the same argument about comedy.
And then he says some really
my
inspiring
own
shit.
parents were like, do you know how few people make it as a comedian? I was like, okay. Does anybody make it? Somebody makes it, right? They figure out how to do it. They make a living. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Just stop.
So there you go. And I think the way that I took that was like, man, despite the fact that it's pretty rare that you could make a living off of video games, if that's what you really want to do and you're really to put in the work and you're transparent about the challenges and the struggles, you go do it anyway. Don't listen to anybody that's going to stop you from telling that, whether it's me or whether it's Joe Rogan or anybody, right? I think I'm intent on making this video and defending Joe Rogan in this sense because I think that he often has messages like this that are really inspiring, which is like the whole setup for this conversation was that Joe lived a childhood where he didn't let anybody define what he was going to do. And that's something that I personally identify with because I did the same thing. I can't, the only gear I have is like to do the thing that I think provides value. And I don't have any, I can't like listen to somebody else tell me that I can't do something. I don't really care about odds on something. Like if it's something like, that it's only a 0.0001% chance that you're going to become a top streamer. Well, I did it, and I did it part-time, by the way, right? Like I don't care about the odds, but that's also because I know I have a learning mindset, and I will just grind into it. I will really, really try. And Joe actually reinforces this. We got to go all the way to 320 here, where he kind of tells you what it takes.
But the thing is, like, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to play multiple video games because the one video game that you get really good at, what are the odds that's going to be around 5 years from now?
Right.
Right. So he really displays a pretty clear understanding of what the industry is, which is 100% true. You can become the best player in the world at League of Legends. If League of Legends fades away in 5 years and is something else and you don't adapt, like you're out of a career and then you don't have any transferable skills. So the lesson to take away from this video isn't like, oh, like this is making, because I saw so many posts on Reddit and I saw so many like tweets and this was trending in the US and everywhere of people just saying like, oh, Joe doesn't get it. Like he doesn't understand video games. It's really clear that he does. He understands what it is. He had a personal experience with it that struggled with it. What he's saying is not that you can't become a professional at video games. It's to acknowledge the difficulty of it. And real talk here, okay? I was talking to somebody this morning, and I thought they said something that was like really apt about this. Was they had a person in their life that was trying really hard to become a streamer. I'm trying to find it right now, and what they said to me was they used to chase games that were popular for other streamers, play them relentlessly for months, and burn themselves out, and switch to something else, not realizing they hadn't built themselves a following. They just attracted people who followed those games. And I realized that that's the hustle that 99.9% of broadcasters are playing. Like they're in it for the viewers, they're in it for the money, they're in it for like the all that, right? And they're not in it to actually provide some sort of value or create something that matters to people and makes a difference. And the people that I see like criticizing Joe Rogan, they're two types of people. Either one, they're people that are threatened by the fact of how infinitesimally small it is likely that you're going to ever go anywhere with video games. That's number one. And number two, it's people in the gaming industry that just didn't listen to the full clip and read the DeSerto article. But I think for number one, the if you are the right sort of person, you get inspired by this conversation. You come away from it and you go, okay, video games are really, and I think a lot of people on this channel that listen to me are these type of people. Video games are a really, really, really difficult thing to contend with. But man, if that is really my passion, that is something that I want to do more than anything else. That's something that I'm passionate about to a degree that I'm not passionate about like anything else. I will literally put in the work. I will grind. I will understand the odds, and I will fight despite those odds. The vast majority of people don't approach a career in video games with any sort of this kind of sincerity. They think that it can be handed to them, and we have a real problem. It's the same problem we have in like all entertainment and like Hollywood, where it's like people want everything that this job has, but none of the costs of it. Not understanding that like you have to sometimes stay up for days straight while you're following like content, or you have to like you can't play video games that you want. Like I can't sit and stream EVE Online all day, even though I would love to do that, or Path of Exile, because I have to broadcast stuff that people actually add value to. I got to prep my shows. I got to invite guests on that are interesting. There's a reason I'm in the top 1% of broadcasters, right? It's because I do a ton of work to make sure that happens. I invite tons of guests. I schedule tons of shows. I prep my shows. I go back through my VODs and I look at the stuff that I've done before. I mark points in my broadcast that I don't think went well. I hired a comedy coach. I went to improv class. I do all these things because I wanted to become better at something that I was interested in. This is the kind of work that you have to put in. It's not hopeless, but the vast majority of people are not going to be cut out for it. They're just going to give up and do something simpler. I just think that we use this. It's sad to me that we use Joe Rogan as a shield to defend ourselves against the reality that professional gaming is really unlikely, and that if you don't want to put in the work, you're not going to get the results. And so everybody blames Joe Rogan and thinks that he's attacking video games because he says what is true, that for the vast majority of people, video games is a waste of time. Many people struggle with it. For some people that have gotten control of it, it can be a healthy, way to decompress or to relax. For lots of people that are trying to become professionals or are trying to grow into something where they're going to make full-time income off of it, it's incredibly unlikely. But as he said in the last part of his video, if you choose to step it up and really put in the work and understand it, you can win. And I think that's the message you should take away from it. And the gaming industry is like so vulnerable right now. It's really sensitive just because of what it's been going through over the course of the last like few months. So I think that this is just like an instant reaction. But man, there's just a lot of delusional people out there. And I think you just got to be super real about, you don't have to pay attention to the odds, but you have to be aware of them because that'll make you work harder to get what you really want. All right, that's it. Like the video, subscribe to the video. Hit the bell notification. Actually, like 67% of you aren't subscribed to the channel. What? Okay. This is not the only videos I do. I do videos about the gaming industry all the time. This is just one of them. There's a bunch of stuff about Twitch, YouTube, Meta, things like that, things that I love talking about. So hit that subscribe button if you've got it, and we'll see you again next time. Also, make sure to come check out my stream. It's on weekdays, twitch.tv/Devin Nash.